What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and in today's episode, we will be going over the what if of what if I was in Rand Carthen's chair? What would I do in free agency this year? All right. I need to mention this beforehand. I've already done a mock draft. That was last episode, so if you want to take a look at that video, then I'll have a card linked like right up here, maybe. I'm not too sure. It may be on the other side, but anyway. So, yeah, free agency is a very weird time in the NFL, if we're being completely honest, because, we don't know who's getting franchise tagged. We don't know, we have an idea of who's getting franchise tagged, but we still don't know who it's going to be. We also, we also need to see who has enough salary cap space to make this and that happen, stuff like that. So let's get right on into today's video, starting out with the first subject I wanted to get out of the way, and it's ironically about mock drafts. Man, the fan base is very divided on what we're supposed to do here. I don't think I've seen this much divide from the fan base in a pretty good amount of time, because there hasn't been anything to be divided about, because we were all united under hard-nosed, smash-mouth, Vrabel football for a while. But now that we're basically rebuilding, or reloading, whatever you want to say, or whatever you want to say it is. All right. Either way, we have not had that much to be divided about. But now that we're in the middle of a rebuild, we are going to be seeing a lot more divide within the Titans fan base. Let me tell you that much about what we should do. We should go this way in the rebuild, or no, we should go this way, or we should go down this middle road where both issues work themselves out, which is honestly probably the best sounding one. But all right, so everybody is split between two paths. It's either they want to draft an offensive lineman, a left tackle, to where Will Levis doesn't have to worry about getting murdered every single play in every single game because his left tackle is so bad, or we go for a receiver, so that way, even if somebody is protecting for Will Levis, we don't have to watch Will Levis throw to DeAndre Hopkins, who's not as good as he was before, or throw to the glorified tight end, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who I hope we let walk. But anyway, so it's a little ridiculous, I think, because there's some third path that some people are talking about that I don't get, the Brock Bowers path. Y'all already know how I feel about that. I think Brock Bowers is great talent, going to be a great tight end in the NFL, but he's not what the Titans need right now. And I don't know if any of y'all follow me on Twitter, you've probably already seen this, but my opinion is that if we did that, that would hold the Titans back a few years. Not significantly oh, it's the end of the world if Brock Bowers becomes a Titan. Oh, Brian Callahan's getting fired if that happens. No, that's not what's going to happen. All that I'm saying is that it may take a year or two longer than we're expecting it to for us to truly turn over and become a good organization. And again, y'all already saw what my opinion was. It's either we draft Alt or Fashanu. I think that we go left tackle and then we go receiver in the second, or we draft Neighbors or Roma Dunze. Those are really the only two options that I think are best. All right, so if it was up to me, I would draft Alt and then go for A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy in the second, or I would draft Neighbors in the first and Patrick Paul in the second from Houston. So now that we got that over with, it's time to go full on into today's topic. And my gosh, I have a lot of notes written for this. So, I know nobody's asking this question because I have a small fan base right now. But what if I were in Rand Carthen's chair, you might ask? What would I do in free agency? Well, random viewer that I came up with, I'm glad you asked. Because what I would do is that I would break it down into 3 position groups that need major help on the offensive line. Let me tell you that much. All right, number 1, we got to start out with receiver. With us going to potentially draft the left tackle, and that being probably my favorite option, then that means that we got to go with receiver. Like if we did go with the receiver in the first, and my number 1 would be what my number 2 is right now. We'll get to that later. But we're going to start out with number 1, receiver. All right. Now I have 4 options. And one of them is more of an honorable. The bottom one is more of an honorable mention. Like, what if none of these first 3 guys are available? Then this is the guy that we should probably go with. So number 1 is T. Higgins. Very physical, good receiver. Very strong and very active in the receiving game. And Brian Callahan likes him. And T. Higgins also likes Brian Callahan. But there is one problem with trying to do this. He's going to get put on a franchise tag. Like, it's not like if it'll happen or when it'll happen. It's going to happen. All right, especially with reports coming out that the Bengals are expected to not franchise tag Joe Mixon. It just won't work out. All right, we're not going to get him. Maybe, honestly. I don't know what's going to happen, but my expectation would be that we would have to give up like 2 firsts or something stupid like that to go out and get Mr. I said Mr. Good old T. Higgins. All right. And again, I wouldn't be completely opposed to like trading like maybe like not this year, but like next year's 2nd and this year's 4th or something like that for T. Higgins. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to something like that, but I'm completely opposed to trading any first round picks just so that way we can go get T. Higgins. That's just my personal opinion, but I think that a lot of people share that opinion because of how injury prone he is. But anyway, moving on, we got the second receiver, and this would be Brandon Ayuk. Now, I know that a lot of people are not ready to have this conversation, but Brandon Ayuk may actually be better than T. Higgins, as in player-wise. System-wise, we don't know because we haven't seen Callahan be a head coach yet. But from what I can tell, Brandon Ayuk is the better overall player. He was able to climb up a crazy receiver core and become the receiver 1 with Debo in his way. Like, he's a very good wide receiver. He has progressed greatly through his first few years, and he's going into the offseason, and people are questioning if he's even going to stay. That's why this is potentially more likely than T. Higgins, but I can't just completely go all in on that. But, like, receiver 1 from a great offense is always a great idea. But there's one problem. Actually, there are probably 2. One I forgot to overlook in my notes. First off, again, franchise tag is most likely going to be put on him instead of anyone else in that room of the San Francisco 49ers free agents. But also, what if he's just a product of Callahan's system? No, sorry. What if he's a project of Kyle Shanahan's system? Like, what if he is just a receiver that is he's okay anywhere else, like maybe like a receiver 2 or 3, but the only reason that he was really looking like an amazing wide receiver 1 is because he had Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. That is something that should be at least a little concerning. Because, like, that could very well just be the truth. He may not be all that great, and he's just a product of the system. That's why T. Higgins is a more comfortable option, because we'll never have to question that, because we can just be like, hey, let's transfer T. Higgins into the system that he was in Cincinnati, and let's just use him the same way in Tennessee. You know, like there's not that much turmoil with that. But like if Brandon Ayuk tries to play in another system, it may completely flop. And that's just my problem with it. All right, we're going to have to start speeding through this, but because of how many people there are. But number 3 is Calvin Ridley. He had a very up and down season last year. Like there were some weeks where he would just receive for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then there would be some weeks where he would just receive for like he would just have like 2 receptions for like 15 yards and no touchdowns. Like trust me, as someone that owned Calvin Ridley on his fantasy football team, he was very inconsistent. But here's the thing. He's better than NWI. He may not be better than D-Hop is even right now, but still, he could give him some competition. He's better than Treylon Burks. He's better than Chris Moore. He's better than anyone that you can name on that receiver core, except for maybe D-Hop. I could see the argument with that. But and also, it was his first year off of a gambling suspension, which, by the way, in my incredibly inaccurate video, which is one of my most viral videos for some reason, where I stand up for the Tennessee Titans, I told y'all that Calvin Ridley could be washed going into this year. And in week 1, I looked crazy. I even admitted to myself, yeah, I may have been a little bit too much with that. But, like, he wasn't the form that we were expecting him to be during the off season. And, you know, he was still a little rusty because of the gambling stuff. So that's one thing that I take pride in. Please just let me have that, because that video was so inaccurate and ridiculous. And it was even before I had this Hawaiian shirt or this setup. So if y'all want to see what the baby version of this channel was, y'all can go take a look at that. But anyway, so anyway, he is probably more likely than the other two, and I don't think they're going to put the franchise tag on him, so there's that. All right, next up. This is the honorable mention, the backup, if you will, for just in case if Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, or Brandon Ayuk aren't available. We got to go get Hollywood Brown. Now, I know that a lot of people are probably opposed to that. I'm not the biggest fan of it either, but, you know, he's fast, but he's meh. You know, he's an okay receiver, but he's not like any of those other 3 guys. Even Calvin Ridley, for how rusty he was this year. But he's probably the most likely to be the best receiver to come in to free agency. And he'll probably end up being the only available option. There's also Tyler Boyd. I need to mention that dude. And then there's also there's one more dude that I can't remember. What is his name? Oh gosh, I'm blanking right now. You know, I can't remember his name, but there is another receiver that I can't think of right now. But trust me, if I do think of him, it'll be like in the description or comment section or something like that. But anyway, that's all that I have for the receiving core. So those are basically all my thoughts on receiver in free agency. But anyway, moving on. We have, sorry, I am very distracted right now. Number 2, excuse me, right tackle. Now, this position would probably be number 1 if we drafted Neighbors or Rome Odunze or something like that. But right now it's number 2 because it's what we're worried about right now. All right. And the first option, and what I think is the most likely option, honestly, is Jonah Williams. Now, I know he's not liked by the Bengals fan base, but like, you know, he's viewed the same way there as we view Andre Dillard. But like the difference is that Jonah Williams, even though he's not the greatest, he's a lot better than Andre Dillard. So like, get over yourselves. But he is younger. He's on the younger side, and he's definitely. And let's just be honest, he's definitely better than Chris Hubbard or Dylan Radins at right tackle. All right. I think that Dylan Radins can actually have a shot at being pretty solid if we just put him at right guard. and let him and Brunskill compete for the starting right guard job. At least that's just my personal opinion. And this Tic Tac Titans personal opinion, Mr. Locked On Titans himself. So, like, if y'all want to go to war with me on that, then whatever. I just know that one of the better minds in the Titans fan base is on my side for that one. So, anyway, let's move on. All right. So, obviously the biggest thing is that he has that Bengals connection. Like he has been with Brian Callahan for a few years now, and we could perfectly just put him into the system that Callahan runs. I can't remember if it's gap or zone. I'm pretty sure it's just, or if zone's even a thing. I think it was that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments for that, because again, I'm not a guru and scheming and whatnot. I just know what to watch for in a good player and what he does. So take that for what you will. But anyway, yeah, he's probably the most likely out of all of them. Obviously not going to get the franchise tag, so let's go pick him up. All right, second option is Michael Onwenu. Sorry if I completely butchered that last name because I've heard it multiple times, but I still don't know how to pronounce it because it's just so weird. But he's young, and he had a breakout year last year. So you'd think I am the highest that anyone could be on this dude. And I was for a little bit until I had it explained to me again by Tic Tac Titan. Trust me, his podcast is amazing. But I had it explained to me that, like, hey, he doesn't run the same system as, or he doesn't run the same system in New England as he would in Tennessee with Brian Callahan, because he runs a gap, and again, I think it's called a zone. Is what we'll end up running with the Titans, but like he is very good in my opinion. That came out weird. I'm sorry, but he's probably the best option out of all of them, but I think that somebody will end up bidding more for him, more than any of us could even imagine. So, anyway, let's move on. Next one is Trent Brown. No. I'm sorry. No. We are not going after Trent Brown. All right? He's old, which means that he has experience. I'll give you that. But he is not good enough to be a great right tackle that we need. All right? We don't need an old dude. We need a little bit of experience, don't get me wrong, but we do not need some elder talking about how great it was back in 2018 whenever the Patriots were on top of the NFL. Hey, newsflash, buddy. We beat the Titans in the wild. We beat the Patriots in the wild card a few years ago. All right? And ended their dynasty, which completely gets overlooked. But anyway, so he's also a locker room cancer, like genuinely. He isn't looked upon fondly by fans or anyone for that matter. I know how that sounds terrible, but it's the truth, at least within the NFL. He's loved by his mama and daddy, but he's not loved by NFL executives. And also Patriots fans hate him. And I know that, like, Bengals fans hate Jonah Williams, but like Patriots fans, like whenever I saw a tweet about him being a free agent, everybody was just like, good. He was a locker room cancer. He's too old. He's so caught up in his past. Like, calm down, first off. Second off, that should be reason for concern. But anyway, now that we're done with the right tackles, this video is not going to be only 20 minutes long. This may be like 30 minutes long, judging by how long I'm going. But here's the thing. We have the third and final position that we are going to go over today. This is the cornerback. And I know that there are probably some other concerns that I can't think of right now, like a true linebacker number one to pair up with Azeez Al-Shaair, or another defensive lineman for just in case if Danico Autry doesn't come back. But here's what I have for you. Number 1, L'Jarius Sneed. Physical, obviously, is a very good cornerback. He just won a Super Bowl, and he was a big reason of it. But he still shined in Kansas City, and he is very good. And I'm not too sure if Kansas City will be able to afford him. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, if they found some type of way to give him a big extension, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. But if he gets in the free agency, we got to throw all the money at him, all right? Like, if we just gave 3 big contracts to these 3 dudes and we didn't do anything else, except for maybe get, like, a backup QB or something, a backup for a couple of positions and a running back to pair up with Tajay, like, I would be happy, honestly. So, moving on, again, L'Jarius Sneed, very good cornerback, but he is also in the danger of the franchise tag because Chris Jones ain't getting franchise tagged because what he's been asking for in a contract is actually less than the franchise tag. So it would make no sense for Kansas City to franchise tag him instead of giving him a dang extension. But anyway, that's my thoughts on L'Jarius Sneed. I still think that he's the best option in this group, at least. All right, second person, Jeff Okudah. Now, I know that there's a little bit of controversy around his name because he was drafted like 3rd overall by the Lions in 2020. I think it was 3rd. It may have been 2nd, but no, it was 3rd. It was 3rd, yeah. So he was drafted 3rd overall by the Lions, and he stunk it up, if we're being honest, and he was injury prone. So, like, people were starting to doubt him. And I know how controversial the name is, but he's been turning it around recently. Like, he was doing pretty decent in Atlanta. But my one thing was that he is going to end up, he's also young. You know, he's young, and like I just said, he's young. He's got a very good, there's a coach that I know that actually came to Tennessee and is in here now. Not know him personally, but I've heard of him. Steven Jackson. That he started turning it around whenever he was his coach. So maybe just maybe Steven Jackson could give him some more of that stuff in Tennessee. He's not going to get franchise tagged as well. That's a big part of this. But we got to also talk about we got to also mention the fact that Jeff Okudah could be very well injury prone. So that's probably the biggest concern that I have personally. But anyway, moving on, we got Rock Ya-Sin. Very fun name to say. Very, very, very fun name to say. So first off, he's not getting franchise tag. That's obvious. Most of the secondary, which was better than him this year, is going to probably be gone, and they would probably rather franchise tag Marlon Humphrey, if I'm being honest. So I think that Marlon Humphrey is a free agent. Anyway, but he's solid, and we have one of the coaches that he was with in Baltimore that everyone apparently seems to love, Denard Wilson. So if he comes over to the Titans and he can be imported into the same system, and he's looking for that one big break, you know what I'm saying? He's looking for that break that he can get to where he could end up solidifying himself as one of the better corners in the NFL. But that's also my biggest negative with him. He's unproven. We don't know if he is worthy of a cornerback 1 slot. He may just be a cornerback 2 or 3, or he could just be a product of McDonald's system. So we got to think about that. But overall, I still think that that's probably one of the more likely corners, especially because he's not as injury prone as well, you know, Jeff Okuda. So, anyway, moving on. We got one more, and this one is more of an honorable mention type of thing because I feel like that it would be a crime if I didn't mention his name, but he's also probably not going to be a part of our team. It is Jalen Johnson. Before I prefacize anything, this is not going to happen. All right, Jalen Johnson would be my wildest dream. He would be the best cornerback that we could get. But here's the problem: he's going to get franchise tagged. Nobody's going to want to trade a first round pick just to go get a cornerback. And even though he's young and well liked, he's just not. It's just not possible. All right, we're not getting him. But that is going to be the last person that I mention. Overall, I think that these are the best things that we can hope for as Titans fans about like all of these dudes. And if we end up getting one of the dudes that I listed in all of these positions, except for Trent Brown, I think that we will be golden. I think we will have some very good roster reconstruction, and this team could be looking more and more like a contender for the title. Maybe not for the title, as well. Actually, for the title, as in the AFC South. So, anyway, I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. X, but I have all three of those. They're all under at the Titans Rundown. So if y'all want to go follow those, see more of my opinions on the NFL and whatnot, and on the Titans, or even just see a little bit of my personal life, y'all can go do that. But anyway, that's gonna do it all for me. This has been a rundown of the free agency of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.